Hey babes, and welcome. Today we will cover the basics of how you become an au pair, and more specifically how you actually become an au pair in Australia. So we will look into things you need to consider before choosing a family, how to actually find a family, and just other tips that I would have liked to know before going through this whole process. I will very shortly be covering visa as well, but I have a full video for that coming up. I myself am an au pair in Melbourne right now, and I have been for roughly 2 months. I traveled all the way from Little Denmark after I finished high school. Don't worry if you're from somewhere else, this video should be helpful regardless of your nationality and even regardless of where you're actually going to be going. So let's get to it. First off, you gotta figure out two things. The first one being how long you're gonna stay. So that includes the first possible day for you to set foot in Australia. Let's not think about the visa processing time, all that for now, it's not really important, but when do you finish the things you have responsibilities at home? Like, when do you finish school? How can you get to the airport? That kind of thing. And then you will also have to figure out how long you're going to stay. So for me, I figured out I wanted to go to Australia after being accepted into university in February, because that gave me a 5-month gap from when I finished all my classes in high school and then to the time that I would start university. My situation also means that I have a very fixed date on which I have to get back home, and you may not have that. You may not know how many gap years you want, or you're in a completely different situation from mine. It's just good to have an idea of how long you would actually want to stay, both with your host family and in Australia in total, if you take out time to only travel or only do something else. The next thing you would want to figure out is, what is your purpose actually of going to Australia or whatever place you might be going off to? And that is not for anyone else, it's just for yourself, and it doesn't have to be for any noble or practical reason at all. It's just that it helps you do the things that you would actually want to do while you're here. For me, the goal was initially to figure out if I want to move back to Australia once I finish my degree and everything back home. And that means that I want to figure out what the local community is like, and I want to gain knowledge on how to run a business here. Now, this purpose or goal does not have to be completely fixed. It is good to leave yourself some wiggle room and to be able to change it up if you get inspired to do something that's different. It just ensures that when you do choose a family or a location, that you have a good foundation to do that upon. So my purpose diverted from solely being, do I want to live here once I have a degree, to also being, I want to see beautiful nature, amazing cities, and make friends while doing that. And the fact that I mentally noted that both from the beginning, but also the fact that it changed, that enabled me to be more conscious and actually make an effort to achieve those goals and get the experience that I actually want, as opposed to fumbling around blindly and hoping to get an experience that's perfect without knowing what that includes for myself. Next up, we have finding a family, and some people would choose to get their visa before all of this. I decided not to, because I wasn't sure it was going to be like a thing that I was actually going to travel off to Australia, and so I didn't want to spend a ton of money and effort in getting the visa beforehand. You can basically do this one of two ways. So you can go through an agency or you can do it yourself. And I started on one of the agency web pages, but I was just looking through and posting my things without having the actual membership. But like over the course of 3 days, nothing had happened, so I started to look elsewhere, and I kind of stumbled across this Facebook group called something like Au Pairs in Australia. And then I found a few others with au pairs in Melbourne and Sydney and other different cities. So what I did was I took my whole long introduction and motivation for being an au pair, and I posted that in like 2 of the groups, and within like 3 days I've been in contact with around 20 families. So Facebook is very effective, and it's also a free way to find a family. The thing you will have to consider is that it's probably a safer way of doing it if you go through an agency, but I mean, I did it without an agency and I made it perfectly fine. So unless you know for certain that you want to be an au pair and you want to have that extra layer of security, you can just do it yourself. What I recommend, regardless of whether you go through an agency or you choose to do it yourself, is that you A, get a contract, and B, that you speak to the families over like FaceTime or Skype, something like that. So speaking to the family will firstly put your mind at ease, knowing that they're actually who they say they are, but it would also give you a better understanding of who they actually are as a person, as a family. So how do they speak to each other, and you can get a better idea of whether or not you would be the right fit for the family, and the family can do that as well with you. And with the contract, it's just really important to know that it's not there because you have to be super suspicious of people, because yes, it makes sure that the family can't legally screw you over and vice versa, but it's mainly there to make sure that you know what the family expects of you and the family know what you expect of them, and to make sure you don't have a lot of misunderstandings along the way. And needlessly to say, when you're going overseas like this, possibly for the first time that you will ever have to stand on your own 2 feet, you need to have your finances figured out. And what figured out means is definitely dictated by your purpose of going here, which we already talked about earlier. Ugh. Got a fly in my face. For me, that meant that when I was here, I wouldn't want to spend my whole savings. I wouldn't want to blow that up, because once I went back to Denmark, I'm going to move out to my own apartment and I want to have that financial freedom. But maybe your situation is different, so maybe you have an entire savings to spend traveling here, or you just scrape together enough for the plane tickets, and whatever salary you get here is what's going to pay your adventures or whatever you're going to be doing. Just be mindful of that, so you know that you have enough to do what you want to do, not just during your stay but also afterwards. Let's talk health and insurance. Get the recommended vaccines, whatever they are. Just make sure you get them. And for many of us, it's probably not that many. I only needed one because, you know, the vaccines we get as children are pretty much the same now. But make sure to check it in advance, because sometimes you will need to get X amount of vaccines within like a certain amount of time, and that has to be done before you leave. Yeah. If you don't have any like crazy health issues that could be like a threat to public health, there's no need for you to undergo any procedures or checks. So I have a bit of asthma, I wear glasses, and I have low levels of iron in my blood, and I didn't have to get tested for anything. In terms of medication, I think you are usually allowed to bring all of that on your journey with you. I have all my asthma medication from home, and I mean, as long as it's a reasonable amount that will only cover you during your stay, there shouldn't be any problem. If you do not want to bring everything yourself, I think you can get your prescriptions from home as long as they're in English. Bring them here and then get your medication, or you will have to go to an Australian doctor to be prescribed something. But I didn't check out the 2 latter, I just brought all my things. So please seek extra advice on that point. Another important thing you will need is a travel insurance. So mind you that not all travel insurances will cover you if you are going to work during your stay. I, for example, was already covered by my parents' travel insurance, but because of the fact that I will be working while I'm here, I needed to go and get a new one. Some countries do have healthcare programs that will cover quite a bit for you during your stay, but you will probably still need an additional sort of travel insurance. With all that said, just don't waste all of your money buying all kinds of crazy insurance. Don't cover things that you know you're not gonna need. If you're not going skiing, don't insure yourself for that. I know it sounds crazy, but you know, if it's your first time again standing on your own feet, as it was for me, you're gonna consider everything. Really quickly about the whole visa thing, I am on the working holiday visa. There's another visa which is work and holiday visa, and they are basically the same thing, but you will need to have a certain nationality to apply for it. What this visa lets you do is stay for up to 12 months, work during your stay. You can also study, not that I'm going to be using it, but it might be relevant to you. And it will also allow you to travel in and out as many times as you would like during the time that you're allowed to be here. So that's nice if, I mean, you're going a little trip to New Zealand or Bali or whatever while you're here. You won't have to worry about being denied at the border. It is time to address the elephant in the room. Australians drive on the left side of the road. Is it odd? Yes. Is it impossible to adjust to? No. Granted, the first couple rides as a passenger, I was freaking out in my mind. It felt so weird and wrong. Most of the cars have automatic gears, which makes driving a breeze. You just need to make sure you put on the blinkers and not the windshield wipers, and then you gotta keep left. The only problem is looking in the mirrors. That's really weird because it's all, yeah, the other side. And then remember to stick to the left side of the road when you're in a parking lot, even though there's no cars to follow. It's good to just get an international driver's permit or whatever it's called from back home, because you will need to accompany your driver's license with an English translation. That was a hard word to say. And it's way cheaper to just get that driver's permit instead of getting an authorized translation. Mind you that there are different rules for you as a foreign driver depending on what state you're going to. So for example, here in Victoria, you are allowed to drive for your entire stay on your overseas license as long as it's a temporary visa. But if you're going to New South Wales, there might be different rules. Depending on your situation, you might have to take some classes. But I will get all the links for you down below so you can check that out. And now you should almost be ready to go. Once you get here, it is nice to get some friends. Because even though the family could be the greatest ever, it's just always nice to have both people who are kind of in the same situation as you and people who are around the same age as you as well. It can be really hard to meet Australians because, you know, they're all off to university, they have their own lives. So there are a lot of au pair groups, friendship groups that you can find. Search for the largest city in the area, so for me that's Melbourne. What's good about that is that we're all traveling to a new place, know pretty much no one. And so we're open to meet new people and go to exotic places, travel around. So it's easy to find travel buddies or people you can go out, have coffee with. Whew, that was a lot of information. I just really encourage you to do your research before you get here to make sure you don't get disappointed. Because I found out how little I actually know about Australia. I thought it was beaches and warm weather and animals that could kill you. But let me tell you, it's not all warm here. So bring that sweater that you were contemplating leaving back home in your snowy country. Because whoever built Australia and their houses has no idea what insulation is. So that means if it's not boiling hot outside, your toes are going to be frozen AF while you're inside. And then about the snakes and spiders. Don't worry, they're not lurking in the grass for you or hiding just around the corner. So, chill. And lastly, please remember that you are here as an au pair if that's what you're going to do. Which means that you have a job to attend to. It's not all crazy vacations. Be invested in the family that you're actually going to live with. It is super important to have a good relationship with them because you are living under the same roof. That was all for this video. I really hope you found it helpful and I would love to see you again in my next video. Bye!